Well, hello everyone, and hello Nate.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Greg. Welcome once again to our every other week that's bi-weekly What's This Bird live program. We're so excited to see you all out on the internets. We are coming to you live, and I did not turn off my. Hold on, Twitter always wants to turn on the sound. My earbuds. Oh my gosh, what is going on here? Like I keep turning my
well,
keep
so
unplugging every time. Hold
as
on,
Nate's home
sorry.
studio falls apart, we
Yeah, no joke. Welcome, everybody. It's What's This Bird? It's time for What's This Bird again, and we are excited to have you here. We're going to talk birds and birding as we do every other time we come here, every other week. And but that, like my ring light turning off and my screen turning off really threw me. Really threw me. So I got to be back. We are here with the American Birding Association. If we'll do the spiel here. Um, as most folks know, we maintain a few ABA birding groups on Facebook, and one of those is called What's This Bird? It is an online bird identification community. People take photos of the birds they see in their yards or when they're out birding, put them up there, and we have a whole community of folks that are willing to identify those birds. Every once in a while, we get some that we like to talk about, and that's what we do here on this live program. We're going to take some of those bird photos that have been posted to What's This Bird lately, and we're going to talk through the identification of those birds. And if you have anything else you want to talk about, it's spring. There's a lot of birdie stuff happening right now. Please let us know in the comments. We're coming live on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Hello to everybody in those places. We are excited to have you here.
absolutely and want to say shout out to the people in ABA community
Hey, hey,
that
hey.
are viewing through YouTube as well, and
I
say
didn't
hi
realize you.
to our regulars, Mia. And how you
Yeah.
doing, Mia? And we've got Stephen Williams in Facebook saying hello. So hello to all of you people.
It's a great time of year to be out birding. I'm sure a lot of people have been doing it. Not me, unfortunately. I've been stuck here with a lot of other stuff on my plate, but I'm excited to get out. It's the first week that we have had like really springy temperatures here in North Carolina, like really like feeling like really spring. It's been kind of cold, wet, alternating stuff, but spring is here. The warm weather's here, and the birds are here. If the listservs are any indication, a lot of people seeing multi double digit warbler days, and yeah, that's a great time of year to be out. Hello to everybody on YouTube. Joe Kwasniewski, Elizabeth Alton, how you doing?
Yeah, that is, as you said, that is sort of the lament of those of us who work in the birding industry doing digital media. We just got to sit back here and watch everybody
I
else have
know, I
fun.
know, I know. It is
It
it
is,
is the curse, right?
it is spring in the Great Lakes, which is usually signified by just crazy weather. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
hot, it's cold, it's storming, there's tornadoes, it's summer, it's winter. You don't know how to dress from hour to hour. Um, and the birds get pushed around during these storms. And
Yep.
this April is turning out to be a good one. So far, it's a lot of fun. We've got things from warblers, we've got LeConte sparrows on the lakefront. We've also had looks like we're going to have another crazy limpkin summer. Um,
Yeah, already. Missouri's got three down at Mingo National Wildlife Refuge, and the Boot Hill, Illinois, has already got their first of the season. What will almost certainly be many down in Fayette. That's in the southern part of the state, isn't it, Greg?
yep.
Yeah, they are clearly moving up the Mississippi River and then getting on those other big rivers, the Missouri and the Ohio, and once they got a foothold in Louisiana, it was pretty much all over. They were gonna be making their way up into the interior of the continent.
Yeah, Alex Cruz on Facebook says it's snowing in Minneapolis with 3 inches of snow after the thunderstorm on Wednesday.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, it's April in
Yeah,
the Midwest, man.
ML Rush from Oregon says springless Oregon. It's been cold and rainy forever. Look, I feel you. It is completely leafed. Here's the other side of the coin. It is completely leafed out where I live. We don't even have like biggest part of the migratory birds here yet, and we are completely all the trees are completely leafed out, so there's no hope of even seeing these birds when they get here. Which is the lament of the southeast birder. Spring comes early, but it's already like midsummer by the time the real migrants come, and it's really hard to pick them out.
Yeah, you
It's
got to
nicer
have
up
your.
around the Great Lakes, Greg, where the trees are still kind of budding in little bits, and you can see the warblers when they get there. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
you know,
that
and
when I go to
it's
Ohio in a couple weeks for the biggest week.
it's a crapshoot year to year. I mean, climate change. Those of us who've been birding a long time, we know that
Yeah,
there's
I've
no
seen some
question.
changes. Seen some changes.
But
Yeah.
it's a crapshoot year to year. Is it going to stay cold enough to keep the trees from leafing out until early May, or is everything going to be leafed out by the time the
Yeah.
warblers get here? And sometimes yes,
Yeah.
sometimes no.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just and like in the southeast, like you said, you got to up your birding by ear game.
It's all birding by ear. It absolutely is. Sometimes if you go in the southern Appalachians and you can get up high and these things haven't leafed out, so that you can see if you get out there this time of year, you can see it's like the different elevations are like different stages of spring. Like up above 3,500 feet, 400, or it's still still looks like early March there. Stuff
Yeah,
hasn't leafed out, but down in the valleys, it's completely green. It's pretty interesting.
yeah. So let's see. It's 7 past the hour, and
Hmm.
why don't we jump in here and take a look at what we got this week?
Yeah, we've got some great birds. This is going to be a very warbler heavy episode. I hope you all are ready for that. Tis the season, as you all
It
know.
is.
A lot of
It
warblers
is.
coming
We're
in. As I said, folks are already getting double digit warblers here in the southeast. It's a lot of the early ones, which are breeders like hooded warbler, Louisiana water thrush, American redstart, black and white, things like that. All the big long distance migrants tend to come later when they jump up from South America in one big flight. But a lot of birds around, and as you will see, a lot of interesting identification conundrums that we will discuss.
But before we do,
But first,
a couple of things to make you aware of. If you are in Toronto next weekend, be sure to join the ABA for our community weekend. If you go to aba.org, there's a big, this graphic you're looking at on the homepage. Click that, and you can get the details. But there's going to be a lot of fun events, some bird
free,
walks,
all free
some
events.
seminars, and all free. And so this is the beginning of an initiative where we're going to be moving around the ABA area and come to visit you guys and do some birding with you. And yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the ABA, we are a small organization, but we are scattered across the continent, and we're going to take advantage of that. The fact that we've got
Yep.
people all over the place, and we'll have ABA folks at a lot of these events, both staff and board members, helping out. And for the Toronto weekend, it'll be our board member Paul Riss, who a lot of people might know from his punk rock big year stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He puts cool T-shirts. He's been done our big Bird of the Year T-shirts for many years, and a lot of other cool birdie arty stuff. He'll be taking the lead on this ABA Community Weekend. We'll have some other ones coming out later in the year, so please keep an eye on the ABA website for that, or sign up for our newsletter. Flight calls will be announcing them in that one as well.
Yes, and you can sign up for flight calls on the footer of any page on our website. Just go down there, and there's a link for that. Just sign up, and you can join our subscribe to any of our newsletters. We have a travel newsletter. Also, something else coming up.
Oh yeah, we got more stuff.
Coming up the end of the
Lots of
month,
stuff.
the Young Birder Big Weekend, and this calling all young birders. If you're going to go out that birding that weekend, submit your eBird lists and photos. If you go to the URL there, aba.org/big weekend, there's instructions on how to participate. But it's kind of like the feeder watch initiative, but a little bit different. But it should be a really good time, and then we'll be sharing the results of the big weekend. I believe sometime in June.
It's the same weekend as our community weekend, so any young birders up in Toronto should take part in this. I
Absolutely,
think we'll definitely have some up there for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's jump into our birds for this week.
Let's talk birds, everybody. We got a bird here from
Oh,
Litchfield,
we got a bird here.
Connecticut. We got a bird
That's
here. We like to start
Boy.
broad. We like to go broad to
Yeah,
start.
let's start. All right. So obviously, this is a looking at the size of it looks like maybe a grapevine or something there by the bird's
Hmm.
bill. This bird isn't all that big, um, and it's got kind of a narrow bill. Uh, so it's a small passerine, which could be warblers, vireos, sparrows, flycatchers, could be any of those. Um, but the first thing we can see here is the bill, and the bill is
Hmm.
not very wide. It's kind
Hmm.
of thin in all dimensions. So we can rule out the sparrows. I think we can rule out flycatchers because the
Yep.
bill isn't very
They're
wide.
broad. Yeah.
Um, it's not very heavy, and I think we can rule out vireos on that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, Vireos typically have a very pronounced hook at the tip of the bill, and we can
yeah,
see that this bird definitely does not have that. It's got a
yeah,
pretty straight all the way to the tip.
and that's something if when you're learning your birds, learn your taxonomy, learn families and how different groups of birds are related to others. And vireos and shrikes are closely related.
Hmm.
And a shrike, that hooked bill of a shrike, is really just a exaggeration of the hooked bill of a vireo. It's just
That's right.
another. It's yeah. So
Yep. I mean,
what
I sort
can
of
we
spoiled
see?
it at the beginning, Greg, when I said that this was a very warbler heavy episode. Well, this is definitely a warbler.
Yes, it is.
Relatively, it's a small passerine with a narrow bill, as you said, in all dimensions. So let's talk about what we can see on this warbler as we try to identify that, because that's the real rub, right?
Yeah.
So things that stand out to me on this bird, it looks like it's got a broken eye ring, pretty significant broken eye ring. It's got the arc
Yep.
on the top and arc on the bottom. It's broken at the front and the back. That's what we mean by that.
Yep.
Sometimes you see them in field guides as eye arcs as well, as opposed to an eye ring. And also, it looks like it's got a couple wing bars too.
Yeah. The wing bars
That's
look
pretty
rather prominent.
significant. Yeah, pretty good size wing bars, and it's this is a looks like it's an overcast day, so the color is sort of difficult to get a true sense of. But I think that the mostly kind of yellowish, kind of rotten banana yellow that this bird is all over is a pretty accurate depiction of what we would expect to see on this bird in the field as well.
Yeah, we can also see that the breast is kind of muddy with a little brighter in
Yeah,
the center.
a little brighter in the
A
center.
couple of
Yep,
other
good call.
subtle things that we can see is it's got a lot of white under the tail.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and it, this is one of the things that you have to kind of infer when you know the bird that you're looking at.
Hmm.
It's not something that will jump out right away, but that 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 sort of yellowish or palish underpart there kind of goes up into the back of the neck. You'll notice how the
Hmm.
face is noticeably grayer than the hind part of the neck, the nape, or the hind part of the face.
Yeah,
And that's kind
and
of
I
key
think
here.
I totally agree. And one other thing I will point out is time of year is going to be really important for this
Bingo.
bird as well, because this
Connecticut.
is a bird that was, yeah, Connecticut, pretty far north.
Yep.
We're talking about an early migrant here, bird that we can expect to see in mid-April. So there, if we're just going by the plumage, there are essentially three warblers that all look more or less similar to this one, that all have wing bars and kind of yellowish all over, and that is female blackpoll, female bay-breasted warbler, and pine warbler. And but if we're going to talk about time of year, blackpoll warbler, bay-breasted warbler, they're both very long distance migrants. These are both warblers that winter in northern South America. So they are typically later in the year. They
Yep.
probably won't arrive in North America, well, I should say in the ABA area rather, until I don't know, very, very end of April, early May.
Right.
Blackpoll warbler in particular is a very late spring migrant. And anything that you're going to see in April that looks like this is probably going to be a pine warbler, especially in Connecticut in April.
Absolutely. And that little there's the two subtle marks on the head. I pointed out that little bit of gray or
Mm-hmm.
pale color going up the back of the neck. That is two species of warblers show that, and that's pine and Cape May. in the
Mm.
female
Yeah,
plumage.
Cape May would be much streakier, just
Yeah,
all
yeah, no,
over,
this
and a
is, and it
very
would have a
little tiny bill. Yeah.
and a very spike-like tiny bill.
Hmm.
Exactly. We can
Yeah,
also
the
make
the
out.
bill's pretty heavy there. Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
Blackpoll and bay-breasted, they can have larger bills, but pine warbler is famous for sort of being a very big and bulky and sort of lethargic warbler. It's got a big bill. It's the most vireo-like of our warblers, just both in terms of
That's
how it acts and the size, the structure, the robustness of the bird.
absolutely. I mean, all those winter records of yellow-throated vireo in the Carolinas are all pine
Almost
warblers.
always pine. We have year-round
Um,
pine warblers. They start singing very early in the year, like a late February. They start singing, and they start
and
moving north not long after.
one other thing, just kind of little an extra nail in it. Um, you can see the little bit of that sort of whitish, grayish, pale lore, sort of that forms the spectacle of the
Mm-hmm.
male pine warbler, forms the spectacles of that. But the female has that, and then the young birds, they have that little bit of pale in the lores too, and you
Mm-hmm.
can make that out. So yeah, this is a pine warbler.
Yeah, pine warbler's tough. They can look. They can give you a lot of different looks. I'll just say that. Less
Absolutely.
so in spring and fall. They can be incredibly variable. Whenever we get a lot of what's this birds of pine warblers because they're never just super well illustrated in field guides, or at least all the kind of varieties that you can see them, or all the different plumage variations you can see with them, and people get
Sibley does
confused.
a
It
very good
happens a
job, I
lot.
would say.
Sibley does a pretty good job too. When I did the field guide to the photo field guide of birds of the Carolina, the ABA field guide, pine warbler was the one species of bird that I included 4 photos of, like more than any other bird in the book, because people get that bird mistaken for a lot of things.
Oh,
It
absolutely. I
can be
mean,
a bogey bird for sure.
confusing warblers is something that is said a lot, but really most of them are not that confusing once you're familiar
Yeah,
with them. But this one,
they're all pines.
this one can truly be
Every confusing
confusing.
warbler is a pine.
Yeah. Okay. And this one comes to us from the West
Ooh,
Coast.
yet
And
another warbler.
hey, you said it was going to be warbler heavy, so we're
Warbler
doing
heavy. It's
warblers.
Warbler Rama, the biggest. What's this bird in warbler? Sorry, I was trying to make a biggest week
That's
connection there, but I realized halfway through that they don't actually have a warbler in the name, even though they're known for warblers. Anyway, Eugene, Oregon. This is another early spring bird. That makes a difference. Learn your
yep.
your status and distribution is really helpful. Some things to compare this bird to the one before. It does look like it's got a little bit of an eye ring, but definitely not as thick as the pine warbler we saw before.
No, and it is
Very,
broken.
yeah, it is broken.
That we
Broken
can
eye
see
ring.
there.
Very uniform in color. No
Yes.
wing bars. Zero
No
wing
wing
bars.
bars.
Yeah.
And it's kind of evenly colored from the butt
Yeah.
all the way up to the throat
All the
and
way.
across. I mean, it's pretty much just a little green borb.
Yeah.
But what
Little
about
green
that
orb.
orange face? That's kind of,
That's pretty wild. You see that a lot this time of year
yes,
because
you do.
this is not a feather characteristic. This is not a plumage characteristic. This is a bird, as Stephen Williams says in the chat
Yep.
and Facebook. This is a bird that has had its face in those flowers. And it's got
Yes,
pollen all over it.
exactly.
Yep.
And that is another thing that, warblers, uh, as they're jumping in the flowers, pulling out insects at this time of
Hmm.
year, they cross pollinate as much as
Yeah.
anything else, And when the weather gets warm and the flowers bud and open before the warblers get here, it's a problem for everybody, and that's happened quite a bit. But this bird also has a uniquely shaped, thin spike-like bill, and all of those things plus the
Yes, sir.
location add up to orange-crowned warbler, which
Indeed. Orange-crowned warbler, and we had a request in YouTube to go into the subspecies with this one. Orange-crowned warbler is an interesting bird. It's found across the North American continent. It's
yep,
not an uncommon bird, from coast to coast. But there are 2 main subspecies of this bird, and I pulled out my copy of John Dunn and Kimball Garrett's warblers that I had right behind me, and I was going to go through that before we really started talking about um, subspecies of orange-crowned warbler, because I wanted to make sure I got everything right there. The ones that we have in the east are not as green The ones in the west are these kind of beautiful, bright, more vivid green birds
Yep.
that are quite distinct. It always surprises me when I'm out west and I see an orange-crowned warbler, just how bright they are. The ones that we have in the east tend to be more overall gray, same sort of uniform color from tip to tip. No wing bars, broken eye ring, all that stuff is the same. But the birds in the east, and I'm gonna try and remind myself of the subspecific names, are more gray than green. This is a uh, very bright
And
orange-crowned warbler.
in the east, especially in the fall, they may appear more gray-headed.
Yeah,
Than
yeah. Those
you know.
are
So there's a little more
Oristera.
going on. They're not so unicolored as this bird is.
Yeah, so this is Salata. Is it Salata? That's the western one. That is the bright green one.
Well, you know that I'm
There's a
terrible at
bunch.
remembering stuff like that, and
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
I
pull
don't have a reference guide handy here. I'm one of those people who rarely remembers things that I can easily look up. Um,
That's right. That's exactly right. I have no room in my brain for this sort of thing, so I've got to
not when I have three active screens in front of me.
Salata is the eastern one, and let's
Yeah.
see. Oh boy, I am distribution. Oristera is the western one, the far western one that I think this one is. That's
Yes.
the very bright one, if I'm remembered right. There's also a Southern California Sordida, but I think based on location, this one is probably it could be lutescens. There, see, you're getting me. Oh, there's lutescens.
Yep.
Oristera is the interior of the continent. Sordida is Southern California. Lutescens is the coastal one. Salata
Yes.
is widespread across, breeds in Alaska, migrates through the eastern half of the continent.
And
There's a really nice.
Alex,
I don't even have it, but there's a really nice map. I can't see it because I've got my thing on there. But
Alex Cruz,
Lutescens is what I imagine this would be in Eugene.
Alex Cruz
in,
Jr. on
Western
Facebook
Oregon.
points out that the yellow undertail coverts help distinguish from Tennessee warbler, especially in autumn
Yeah,
when they
that's a
look
good point.
the same. Yes, and that is a great point. This time of year, Tennessee and orange crowned look the least alike. They're very similar, but in the spring they look the least alike. But in Oregon, Tennessee would be an exceptionally
It'd
good
be a
bird.
very good bird. Yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
the rare eastern vagrants in the west, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Yep.
learn your status and
Thank you,
distribution,
Rick Wright.
kids.
Salata is the nominate. It's the northern one. It's the one that we see in the east, and then there's three different ones in the west, of which this would be lutescens by range.
Oh, we've got Rick Wright on watching us.
Oh yeah, Rick's there. Hey, Rick,
Oh, well,
how
then
you doing?
we don't have to remember anything. We can just ask
right.
Rick and he'll
I'll just
chime in.
ask
Okay.
Rick in the comments, and Rick will be there. Yeah.
We don't have to look anything up or remember anything. Right. Welcome,
Yeah, who
welcome,
needs
Rick. Okay, let's move on here. And this one comes to us from, boy, I didn't put the thing in front of it. I believe this one is from
It's a
California.
weird-looking warbler, Greg.
Yes, no, I know. I forgot to put the location in here, but I'm pretty sure this one is from California. And well, it's got long yellowish legs. It's kind of overall dark. It's a little kind of, I don't know, chestnutty, colorish, purplish on the head and kind of bluish.
Big long bill.
Yeah, bluish. Yeah, all of these things add up to one of the kind of wading-ish birds.
Yeah.
Rails.
I would say that the two
herons.
the two groups that we were looking at here is there's a very railish look to this bird, but that bill looks entirely too thick and too straight to be any of our rails, which tend to have kind of long bills that kind of droop at the tip. And they're also not green and purple.
No, they have a lot of
they are all
pattern
kind
in
of brownish, orangey, buffy sort of things.
Yeah, and they have either short bills or decurved bills. They don't have spike-like bills like this. I mean, this
No, not at
this
all.
bill looks like a railroad spike. Now, the person who posted this said that Merlin had suggested little blue heron.
Okay.
So let's dive into that a little bit. Here is the bird in question on the left,
Yeah, for sure.
with a little blue heron on the right, and you can see there's a whole lot of similarity
There
happening
are,
there.
especially around the head and neck. You've kind of got that buffy, that kind of dark purplish color, which I think is
Yeah.
more a function of the fact that the photo was taken in sort of a low light conditions than the actual bird. Because one of the things you can tell here is that the little blue heron, especially at this time of year, is going to be pretty well, slatey blue all over on the back, whereas this bird very clearly seems green, sort of iridescent green as opposed to blue. And the legs
Yes,
are
and notice the
obviously very
difference
different
in the
colors.
leg color and the just overall stoutness.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the birds are in kind of similar hunched up poses, you can see the bird on the left is just kind of a more thickly built, heavier, shorter legged, kind of more stout. The bill is a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more stout. Um, the little blue heron on the right has a bicolored bill, but as I picked this picture, because even though you can see it, it doesn't jump out at you.
It doesn't.
Um,
No.
but the yellow legs and everything else we've talked about identify this bird as a green heron. But
For
there's
sure.
another mark that I wanted to talk about that is unique to the green heron in both juvenile and adult plumage, and that's why I threw the Sibley illustration in there. And that is the white stripe on the malar at the base of the bill. And you can see that on the
White
bird on the left, that it's got
mustache.
that white slash where the bill
Mm-hmm.
meets the face. And you'll notice how on the little blue heron, it's not there.
Not
And
there.
the illustration there gives us a good look at what that actually is.
Yeah, you can certainly see why this bird used to be called green-backed heron way
Absolutely.
back in the day, decades ago, and perhaps in your old field guides. And then I think it was called green heron again. I don't know. It's had a lot of name changes, but for the most part, people know it as green heron. And it's a migratory bird. A lot of people perhaps don't realize it, especially those of us in the
Oh
southeast where
yeah.
we have small numbers of them year round. But they should be moving northward in good numbers right now. And they migrate at night with warblers. Sometimes if you go out at night, you can hear the weird quawks and quirks
Yep.
of herons passing over, which is always kind of a funny thing. They sing. Do you know
Yeah.
green herons sing? Sort of.
You could, if you call it singing.
I'm sure
I mean,
green
it
heron
sounds
would
kind of
call it
like a
singing.
cat throwing up, but yeah, you could
It
call that
does.
singing if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
um, let's move on. Oh, look at this. We're back
Back
into
to
Warblerville.
warblers.
We're just gonna cut to the chase on this one.
That's right.
Um,
Yep. Back to warblers, Naples, Florida.
but
If we're thinking of status and distribution, a lot of warblers around in Florida right now. A lot of those Caribbean wintering birds are kind of cruising through the peninsula of Florida now these days. And
yes,
it's a good time of year to see
and we'll
migrating
get
warblers.
into the idea of this bird in particular, this warbler. Um, but the person who posted it, I believe, or maybe someone else, I can't remember, suggested warbling vireo as
Yeah.
a possibility. And if you look at this bird, the head looks kind of grayish, the back is green, it's overall plain. Um, yeah, it might look on the head appears kind of wet or messed up. Maybe this bird was foraging in the leaves in the rain.
A lot of
Um,
rain in Florida these days.
yeah, boy. um, yeah, their airplanes apparently are amphibious vehicles lately. Um, but there's two things here that rule out vireos immediately, and one is the bill. There's no
Yep.
vireo with a spike-like short bill like
As we
this.
said before, they all have
Yeah,
big, thick baton bills with a hook at the end.
but the other thing is those thin little kind of darkish. They can't really tell what color they are. Vireos have gray legs and feet, blue gray legs and feet, and they're heavier,
Every
they're
last
thicker.
one of them.
And if this was a vireo, you would very obviously see that this bird has gray legs, and so it is not a vireo. This is a warbler.
Yeah, this is a tough one, Greg. I'll be honest. I'm kind of vacillating between a couple species here. I have a sense that I have a I have a stronger feeling towards one than the other. But some things that stand out to me about this bird, it doesn't have much of a face pattern at all. As
Nope.
you say, I think this bird's been foraging in wet leaves, and that's why the
Yep.
head looks very wet. No wing bars on this thing.
Nope.
That's notable, and also, um, it looks very kind of short tailed. I don't know whether that's foreshortening there. It's got an interesting
Well,
pattern in the tail. It looks
I
like there's
think
some
you're right.
paler. Yeah, it's got an interesting pattern there that I think is probably noteworthy, at least
The
to
interesting pattern
what I'm
is
thinking it
noteworthy, and
is.
it's kind of key in that the
Oh, thank God.
inner webs of the tail are not white. They're greenish yellow,
Hmm.
and the rest of the bird is just kind of
Yeah,
overall nondescript gray. Maybe a little grayer on the head. It's got a pretty well defined eye ring, and
yeah, we can do that. I
there's
don't know
really
what's going
not
on
a
with
lot
that
of.
eyebrow thing. What's going on with
I
that
think
dark
it's just because
eyebrow?
it's wet. I
Yeah,
think that
all
is.
right, I'll
I
give
think
you that.
that. I don't believe that eyebrow is real. I think this bird has been
Okay.
sticking its face into curled up leaves that are. I think this bird is soaking wet. There's really two or three birds in play here, and I think the two most obvious would be a female hooded warbler
Hmm.
or a
That was
young
one that I was
female
thinking.
yellow warbler.
Yeah, that was
And
the other one.
to me, this looks like a yellow warbler. I think a hooded warbler would be brighter
The
overall,
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that the white in the tail would be much more
would
obvious
be
as they do
very
always flicker
obvious,
the
and the
tail
tail
around.
would be longer.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, it does have that very plain face and
I'll have
the
to
eye
look real
ring that I
quick.
expect on a yellow warbler. I buy a yellow warbler with this bird, but those were the two that I was going back and forth between. Um,
Yeah,
so
the other
yeah.
thing too, just I had to look at this to just confirm it. Yellow warbler, or I'm sorry, hooded warbler has rather bright pinkish legs, which at
Mm-hmm.
this time would be pretty
Mm-hmm.
noticeable.
Yeah,
And a hooded warbler would just show, even female, at this time of year, would show much more yellow in the throat and the
I think
face.
that's right.
And
Yeah, it's that.
the eye ring would not be as noticeable as it is.
Yeah, I'll go with that. The black in the head, and, admittedly, I just sort of glanced through these birds when I first looked at them, and I think you're right. I think that apparent black there above the eye is the feather tract, right? That's the down of the
Yeah,
feathers there, and so the head is wet and the feathers are kind of matted, and you can see the downy feathers or the in the tracks there on the bird's face more than you would in life, and it's kind of giving the impression that this bird has a really unique sort of head pattern. That's a tough one
and
for sure.
it is a tough one. And my birding brother from Chicago, Jeff Bilski,
It's a
points
good
out a
point.
really good point, and that is that hooded warblers have dark lores, and that is the
Yep,
space between the eye and
that's
the
exactly
bill,
right. That's what
and it
gives it
gives
that
it
sort
a
of
different
plain,
look.
open face. Yeah,
It's that
that is very
that plain
distinctively
open
yellow
face
warbler.
with
Yep,
the eye ring that's all yellow warbler, and it's
yeah,
not hooded warbler.
yep. I'll go with that. I'll go with that. Yellow warbler sounds good to me. They'd both be around in Naples, Florida right now, and it looks like a big old magnolia tree that it's hopping around in. I guess that doesn't really make too much of a difference, but
Yeah,
yep, yeah, they'd both be
yeah.
around.
I am.
Yellow warbler. I'm
If
going with yellow.
if I were the eBird reviewer, Stephen Williams, if I were the eBird reviewer and this came to me as a yellow warbler, I would just stamp it on through. Um,
Rick Wright, who we've already cited in this book, says his first impression was a common yellow throat, which, yeah, that's interesting. Structurally, I don't know. It's sog.
no,
It's a wet warbler. It's really hard to
it's
get
a
a
wet
sense of
warbler,
what.
but a couple of things kind of steer me away from yellow throat, and we may have to bring this
Going out
one
the old
back.
Dunn and Garrett.
We may have to bring this one back next time and just talk about it a little bit more. But I think the tail looks a little bit too short for yellow throat. And
Yeah, yeah.
common yellow throat,
Structurally, it's kind of weird. Yellow throat is a very lanky warbler, kind of long in the body,
and
and
it's got big
yeah,
feet. This is common
yeah,
yellow throat as a
yeah.
bird that it forages in a different way than yellow warbler. And one of the, it's got
Yeah, it's a
big
reedy
pink
warbler. Yeah.
feet. So I'm feeling pretty good about this as a yellow warbler.
I'm all right with that. I'm all right with it.
Okay.
Good
On to the
discussion.
next. Okay,
Oh,
this is
Grand
a
Isle,
fun
Louisiana,
one.
one of the hot spots of bird migration this time of year. My goodness.
This is a fun one. And so we're gonna kind of dive into this puddle a little bit. And the first thing I want to point out is as anybody who's been doing this for more than a year knows, April and May are just magic. And one of the things that can be really, really awesome and magical is when you come across a puddle in a trail and there's birds around, there's warblers around, and you come on a quiet trail and there's a puddle and you flush a bunch of birds up off the trail, back off, sit quietly, and watch that puddle for a while because stuff is going to come in to drink and bathe in the puddle. Same thing goes for if you like a stream or a little fountain where there's bubbling water. The warblers in particular are attracted to the noise of the running water, and they'll come down and bathe. So that's what we've got going on here. And even though this photo is blurry, we can pretty easily tell what's going on here.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that point, Greg, that Grand Isle, Louisiana. We're going to talk a little bit about like where the significance of this place on the planet. We're talking about a place that is on the north coast of the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of birds this time of year are actually crossing the Gulf of Mexico from the Yucatan. They're jumping off from the Yucatan and flying all the way across the Gulf of Mexico. It's usually about an 18-hour flight and landing in places like Grand Isle, Louisiana, and places in Mississippi and Alabama and North Florida and to the Texas coast, all along there. And they're landing there just completely exhausted. And the first thing that they have to do when they get there is start eating, start bathing, start getting cleaned up. And that's why these places are so critical, and also why these places can be such spectacular birding locations, because a lot of people go to the upper Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana, and you can see these birds coming across the Gulf in the afternoons. And a lot of times you can get just huge numbers of passerine species, migratory bird species in these places. It's a phenomenal time of year to be there, and we're fortunate that this is a series of photos, isn't it?
You're
Greg?
giving
a
it
number
away.
Of photos from this. Oh yeah, all right, sorry. A series of photos from this one puddle that we're going to try and work through these bird identifications on. It's very cool.
Yeah, so let's indulge me and let's start on the bird in the middle, if you will.
Okay, bright yellow bird.
Bright yellow bird. It's hard to tell if it's got pattern on the head, but the throat and the face and the underparts are yellow. The rest of the bird, as much of it we can see, is kind of greenish. Again, it's hard to tell what's going on with this bird. But the forehead kind of looks yellow, and maybe the top of the head looks a little dark. The bird next to it is, if you're familiar with your warblers, immediately identifiable. So we can use that as sort of the waypost in these birds as we go forward. So that kind of plain greenish body with the buffy, that kind of unique buffy front part, and it looks like it's got stripes on the crown. That's a worm-eating warbler. There's only one bird in the ABA area that looks like that, and that's a worm-eating warbler. So now,
but you said you were going to start in the middle, and now we're going to the right.
I am, but I jumped over. I jumped over just to establish that these are all warblers, because I realized that there's nothing to compare them to size-wise.
Fair.
So we've got the bird on the left that's immediately identifiable. So now we know that all the others are all the same size, and they're basically they're warblers or vireos or something small. So
yeah, I mean, I'll tackle that middle bird.
Yeah,
Greg.
let's tackle.
I'll tell you
that
what I
middle
see.
bird.
I see a bird that is very yellow, a lot of yellow all over that bird. I see a big dark eye, and I see a big dark bill that actually looks much more significant than the bill on the worm-eating warbler, which I can barely see, and the bill on the bird on the right. This is a big-billed warbler with a big dark eye and an all yellow body. This looks like a prothonotary warbler to me.
Okay, we're gonna go. No, I think you're being faked out. Out. Yeah.
All right.
And the reason I think you're being faked out is because you didn't look at the next two pictures very carefully.
That could be.
So we know what this bird is.
Really? Man, I have to see quite a bit to convince me that it's
Okay,
not a
all right,
proprietary warbler.
we're gonna hold off. We're gonna hold off on that bird for the moment till we get to the
Okay.
next pictures.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's go to the bird on the right. But the things that I see in this picture that stand out are, like you said, the yellow face and everything. But it looks like maybe the crown is dark. So we got this bright yellow face with a dark
It's
crown,
wet.
but it's really hard to tell. Is that wet? Is that
It's hard to tell.
artifacting? It's really hard to tell. The bird on the right is another one
Yeah.
like the worm-eating warbler that's pretty quickly identifiable with that bright white underparts, gray head,
Yep.
and green back.
Greenback. Yep.
That's a Tennessee warbler. It's a male,
It certainly is.
it's a Tennessee warbler in spring plumage, and so let's move on and look at that bird in the middle. See if we can get another look at that bird in the middle. And oh, look, it's been
Oh, is
joined
that
by
the
its
same
mate.
picture?
That's the
No,
same bird.
that's not the same bird.
That is the
Oh,
same bird.
All right. All right. Yep, it's a hooded warbler.
It's a hooded warbler.
There you go. There you go.
And we have a male
Well, actually,
hooded
go
warbler.
back a little bit. I will say the one thing that bothered me a little bit about about calling this a prothonotary warbler, and I really do think it looks very much like a prothonotary warbler
It does.
in this image.
It does.
The back, the wings look green rather than gray.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, so I put more stock in that being and more of an artifact than the black on the head. But there you go.
Yep.
All right, hooded warbler.
Okay, so
I can be confused by these two
Hey,
birds given the fact if they're blurry enough.
dude, if I hadn't seen all three pictures, we'd still be talking about that bird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a male and female hooded warbler here
We do indeed. We do indeed.
in the middle.
Sweet, sweet.
And
it's so sweet.
and notice
wait, no,
notice
it's
that
the
bright
red
yellow
t-shirt.
forehead. And as
Warbler.
Bilski
Sweet,
pointed
sweet,
out,
sweet,
the
warbler.
dark lures of the female hooded warbler,
Indeed.
and what a
Yep.
different look that has from the
It
yellow
is a
warbler we
completely
looked at
different
before.
look. Yep. It does. It
Um,
looks like its face looks closed almost, as opposed to the very open face of the yellow warbler.
And to the left, we have another, I would say, immediately identifiable bird.
Yeah,
There's really
yeah,
no
no
other
problem
bird in
there.
the ABA area that looks like this. And that is a black and white warbler.
Indeed, indeed, black and white warbler. Another early migrant that should be making its way north across most of the eastern half of the continent.
Yeah. And John Lowry's pointing out
we
on
see.
Facebook that as we say very often here, a single photo can be extremely confusing. If you saw this bird for once, that hooded warbler for 1 second in the wild in front of you, there would be no question what it was. But single photos can be really confusing, which is where
Very much.
multiple photos like this
Absolutely helps.
are really when you have
It's
a
very
bird
kind
that's-
of John to say I would never make that mistake in the field. He has no idea what kind of mistakes I can make in the field. I can
That's
make some
well,
really
as
yackers.
Pete Dunne very famously wrote in his book, and I'm paraphrasing this, the main difference between a beginning birder and an experienced birder is that a beginning birder has misidentified hundreds of birds, and an experienced birder has misidentified thousands of birds.
That's exactly right. Exactly. Right.
So we got this bird on the right. Now, again, as blurry as it is, we can see what's going on here. It's the same size. It looks dark. I see blue.
Yeah, I think it's more blue. Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's
like
got
dark
it's
navy
the thing
blue.
that jumps out at me is this kind of thick, conical, bicolored bill. So it's got
the bicolored bill.
it's got a gray lower mandible and kind of a dark upper. It's kind of got a dark face. But the rest of the bird is just kind of dark bluish, grayish, blackish.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a finch or finchish bird or sparrowish. Actually, it's neither of those things, but it's sort of in that
Finch
vein.
adjacent.
Finch adjacent. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, but that all over kind of purplish blue. It's another very common transgulf migrant, indigo bunting.
Yes. And the bird that it would most be confused with would be blue grosbeak. First of all, a blue grosbeak would be twice this size. It would appear much larger.
And the bill would be much bigger as well.
The bill would be
it's absolutely
humongous.
a gross beak. They don't call it that for nothing.
And it would show some color on the wing panel. It would show some brown or some rufous on the
I
wing
think so.
panel.
Yeah,
But the
it's and
birds,
well, it's hard, kind of hard to tell. It's really the color is a little bit more. It's subtly different too. It's more of a purpley blue than opposed to like an aquamarine blue, like indigo bunting. But the lighting is such that that's a really hard distinction to
it
make. Given
is
the
on
quality of these
overcast
photos.
days. It's it's really tough. And of course, the one thing that's really important to remember as we look at photographs of birds is that different cameras interpret colors in different ways
Yeah,
and
that's
produce.
another
You can have
problem.
like
Yeah,
five different people shooting the same bird under the same conditions, and the pictures, the colors might look five different expressions of a bird's color.
that's
Um,
exactly right. And to go even further, different binoculars can show colors in slightly different
Absolutely.
ways as well. And actually, we'll go even further. Your eyes can like see colors in different ways than other people. Like we're not all looking at the same color, which is something that frequently blows my mind when I talk to people about colors and birds. It's important to
Absolutely. And
remember
that's
that
where, at,
what you perceive as a certain color is not always what other people perceive because the ratio of rods and cones in our eyes are all different and individual.
and that's where Gestalt becomes so important, is that
Mm-hmm.
as you get to learn birds, the overall feeling the overall impression of a bird um, becomes the first thing that snaps your
Yeah,
brain. I
yeah,
saw this picture. Indigo bunting just immediately jumped to mind. I didn't really have to think
yeah, for
about it
sure.
because just the gestalt is, the size, the bill, the
The bill.
situation,
Yeah.
all of
Um,
that is just, that's an indigo bunting. And that is something that as you get better at it, becomes more second nature to you.
Yeah, Alex Cruz points out in Facebook, the indigo bunting giving some purple martin vibes there as well. The way it's kind of sitting on the ground there. Obviously, the bicolored bill is going to be indigo bunting thing and not a purple martin thing. But sort of the shape, the
Right.
way it's sitting there, kind of drooping. You don't really see its feet. It's kind of plopped there on the edge of the pond.
Yeah.
That
I mean, it looks
the
like it was
pool or the
just
puddle or
bathing
whatever.
because the bottom looks kind of grayish.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah,
again, like you said, we're seeing the feather tracks, we're seeing the down underneath. This
yeah,
bird was in the water bathing, so the belly is wet.
yeah.
And yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. It
A
does
lot,
kind
lot
of
of
give
stuff
off
going
that.
on here.
Yeah. Well, and
We got more, but wait,
there's more stuff
there's
going
more.
on.
All right,
Remember,
so
watch
we've got
those puddles, kids.
we got three more indigo buntings here, and you can see the kind of aquamarine kind of
Yes.
tint to their blue a little bit better in this as the light has changed that little bit. Very obvious male hooded warbler with the balaclava there, right there in the front. That's
Yep.
probably the female, just to the left of it. That's all blurred out.
That
I
is the female
imagine
that's
if
blurred
this,
out, but you can still see in
yeah,
that blurred. Look at the white flash in the tail.
yeah, yeah. Good point.
Um,
We
the
got a new
bird
bird
we got
to
a
the
couple
right
new
of the
birds. We
male.
got three
Couple
three
new
new
birds.
birds, I think, here.
Yeah. All right.
The one in the middle, that's another one that's. I mean, can you even tell that's a
You
bird?
can identify it. Yeah,
Oh,
but
it's
yeah,
immediately
but you can,
identifiable.
It's identifiable. Yeah.
It's immediately identifiable. But if you just crop that thing out and put it up, you wouldn't even know that was a bird.
You wouldn't
but
know.
but
No.
we can identify it, because there's
Like
really
Jesus on a
only
piece of toast or something.
two birds in the ABA area really that have this color.
Yeah, bright red all over, slightly darker in the wings. They're both closely related to, or not closely related, but they're both related to each
They're
other.
related.
And that would
Yes.
be northern cardinal, which a lot of us are familiar with in the east,
Yeah.
and summer tanager, which should be moving northward now as well. It's a wintering bird across much of Central America, and another trans-Gulf migrant going to be seen.
Absolutely.
Seen on
And
here. And I
we
think
can
that's what this bird
see,
is.
yeah, we can see that this bird doesn't have any black around the eye.
Yeah,
And the tail just kind of disappears.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, the
Northern
bird
cardinal
is,
a very
for
long
those of
tail.
you who can't quite
Yep.
make it out, the bird is facing us. It is
Yep.
head down in the water.
Yep.
So the bill and the front part of the face are
Throwing its
obscured.
wings off to the
It's
side.
flapping its wings to get water
it's
up
bathing.
underneath its
Yep.
wings, and it's shaking its tail, so the tail is blurred. So really all we're seeing is the bird's back and wing panel
Mm-hmm.
and half of its face. But
Yeah,
the color itself is unique. Summer tanager is
It
a
is a
unique
really
shade
unique
of
shade
red.
of red.
And
Yeah.
if this were a scarlet tanager, the wings would be black, but scarlet tanager is deep scarlet. It's not this kind
Yeah.
of rosy
Kind of a
red.
brick red. Yeah. More of a brick red. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a summer tanager in the middle. And as Nate
Hmm.
said, we've got that male hooded warbler giving us a wonderful view of it now. The female
Best,
hooded warbler
best,
giving us an even
best image
worse
in this
view of it to the
sequence.
left. But now we got a new bird to the right. And
Yeah. So, yeah, it's blue. Looks like mostly blue. It's looks like a couple little white spots in the wing. But
mm-hmm,
the thing that really stands out to me is what looks like an olive green back and a white belly. And it's
mm-hmm.
little. It's a little tiny thing, smaller even than the hooded warbler. Appears to be, and that's a northern parula or
It
parula or
is that
parula, however
with
you
that
pronounce it.
that dark face and the green patch on the back with the white wing
Mm-hmm.
bars. There's only one warbler that has that exactly, and that's northern
Yeah.
parula. Um,
Yep.
Now this bird to the right is tough, but like I said, we got multiple photos to go
Is
by.
there one bird or two birds?
There's a bird to the right of the parula.
Is one bird to the right of the parula?
There's one bird that's flying in.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay, I see it.
this bird
I
has
have a
its
hard
wings
like
down. It has not yet
yeah.
landed. It's caught
Okay.
in flight. It's facing to the left. It's got yellow underparts. The
Yeah.
back looks
Kind of
kind of just
yellowy green.
nondescript,
Yeah.
kind of grayish.
Yeah.
Now, from this, what stands out to me here
I'm gonna get.
is
I'm not gonna venture a guess because I was
the
wrong.
bill
Last
looks
time. I
kind
had
of
a
spike-like,
suspicion.
and the face looks like a little bit darkish. Like
Yeah.
it's got like some dark in the face. But
Mhm.
that's really all we can tell. But if we go to the next photo,
Show me another picture, Greg.
let's look at another picture.
I
And
don't know if that
here,
helps a lot. There we can see our summer tanager. It's got its head up, no black
exactly.
on the face. It's got a light colored bill, like almost kind of yellowish.
Yep.
That northern
Well, you
cardinal
see
has
that big
neither.
honking summer tanager bill. Exactly.
Banana bill.
Now we can see the northern
parallel
parula
pretty
in
well.
the center there. We can see
Yeah.
its face better, that dark face with the white eye arcs and the green
Little
back.
tiny bill. Yeah.
And the little tiny bill. The bird to the right of it. Boy, the little brown. What is that? What's this new little dude?
It's got a pretty significant bill, if I'm
It
seeing that
does.
correctly. It looks pale as well. I'm thinking that might be a female summer tanager.
No, that
Or
bird
am
to
I
the
wrong?
right
Am I
of the
guessing it
parula. That's a
wrong?
female indigo bunting.
All right, whatever.
It's
I'll
got
go
it's
with
got
it.
the little finch bill. It's just kind of overall
Is it?
brown, little wing
All right.
bars.
You're going to
and
show
it's
me another photo that's going to make it
No,
more
that's
clear. I'll
that's
just wait
that's the
for
only
that one.
photo of that bird, but it's basically the same size as the parula. I mean, if it was a female summer tanager, it would be much bigger,
It's
I
about the same
think.
size as summer tanager.
But it's about
Fair
a
enough.
little bit bigger than the parula. But yeah, that looks to me like a female indigo bunting.
Okay.
But
Take
now
your word for
in the on the far right, we can see the bird that was being blurred. So I'm going to back up here. This bird that's flying in on the far right, with the yellow underneath, that bird.
All right,
Whoops,
so
that bird is now standing.
the female bunting is in that picture as well. That's why I asked if there were two birds to the right of the parula.
Oh, you're
I couldn't
right.
tell
The
whether that was
female
a bird
bunting,
or if it was like a piece of wood or something.
the female bunting is blocking the
Yeah,
bird
exactly.
on the right.
That's what threw me.
You know what?
Yep.
I didn't even notice that. You're right.
Yep.
So yeah,
Take
that's
my
the
word for
same
that.
female bunting. Now we can see it again.
Yep.
And but to the right of all of them now we can see the last bird in question standing there, and now it's really obvious what it is. It's got bright yellow underparts. It's got a black bill with a line that goes from the bill to the eye, and it's
Yep.
got white flash in the tail. It's
It
got
does.
that white, and that is a blue-winged warbler.
Blue winged. Yep. Okay. Yep. Well, this was fun.
This was fun. I mean, boy, this is like. So let's see. On this one puddle,
I think I would rather
had-
be there than to try and get
we
the
had
photos
worm eating.
after the fact.
worm eating, hooded, northern parula, blue winged, black and white, indigo bunting, summer tanager. So we had 7 species of birds all bathing together in this little puddle,
This little puddle.
which is
Grand
just,
Isle,
it's the magic
Louisiana.
of spring migration.
Bird soup, says Kathleen Ward. Yes,
Bird
indeed.
soup.
Delicious.
Um, So I believe that that is it for our birds here. So if you guys have anything that you want to talk about with us, we've got a
Yeah,
couple of
we've got a
minutes
little bit of
left.
time.
So bring it up. Any questions?
Tennessee
Oh,
warbler. Did you
Tennessee,
forget the
Mia,
Tennessee
Mia.
warbler?
So yeah,
Eight.
there was
Ocho.
8 species of birds in this little puddle. I forgot about the Tennessee warbler.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have anything you want to bring up, any questions you want to ask us, any place you want to shout out from, now's the time to do it. We got 3 or 4 minutes left here.
I will make a brief statement to say that the ABA will be at the biggest week in American birding, the first week from the 8th, or as the first and second weekend, and the week between them of May. Kelly will be there. I will be there leading a few trips. We'll both be leading a few trips. So if you will be at the biggest week, please come over and say hello. We'd love to say hi. Tell us you enjoy this program. Tell me how you knew all those blurry warblers better than me. Feel free to do that. You're welcome to do that.
Now I will say this. I had the advantage of spending a good amount of time looking at all of those pictures that Nate didn't have.
Yeah, identifying birds from very blurry photos is fun, but it is it's illustrative. You can see it's different than identifying birds in the field, where things like gestalt and vocalizations and behavior and all that stuff sort of plays a much larger role. It's tough to identify birds with photos sometimes. You don't know what is real and what is an artifact, and it's it's a
absolutely
fun,
and that is as I was saying earlier at the beginning of that sequence of images, when you're photographing birds with the intention of maybe identifying them later, you don't know what they are, you're kind of taking pictures of birds, you're not sure what it is, take as many pictures of it as you can.
Exactly.
Put that camera in high mode and fire off, exactly as many pictures as you can, because I can't tell you how many times I've looked at one picture of a bird and thought it's A, and then looked at other pictures of the same bird and it's obvious that it's B.
Yep. It happens every day on What's This Bird. Please join the group if you want to join in this conversation in real time. And also like to say that if you like to support these sorts of programs, the ABA is a member-supported organization. If you want to help support these sort of workshops or all the other kind of cool stuff that we do for the birding community, please consider joining the ABA. You can get more information about that at aba.org/join. We have a number of different membership levels, from e-memberships to memberships where you get paper magazines to supporting memberships. There's lots of different ways to support the birding community and support the ABA's part in it. We will be back in a couple weeks. It will be right before the biggest week, before I leave for the biggest week, and I'll be excited to see you all there. If you want to get kind of a heads up on when these activities happen, please go to the ABA website and scroll all the way down to the bottom and sign up for our Flight Calls newsletter. We'll you get all sorts of cool information about stuff that the ABA is doing, but also you will get notice about 24 hours in advance of when we are doing these programs. Otherwise, Greg, I think we're about done here.
I think we are out of time. One quick thing. Stephen Williams on Facebook says Carolina wrens chose his gourd house, laid eggs, but I think they got frozen out. Will they come back? Yes, very often.
Probably.
Birds, especially their first round in the spring.
Yeah.
If it's unsuccessful, they will come back.
They'll do it again. I would just remove the eggs. And if you're certain that the birds are not coming back to it, and they'll come back to that spot and they'll lay again. Sometimes they're used to that sort of thing, especially the sort of half-hardies like Carolina wrens, where their northern edge of their range abuts places with a bit more erratic late winter, early spring temperatures. So they will, they'll come back.
Yes, and as John Lowry on Facebook pointed out, be sure to join us in Toronto if you are in Toronto next weekend. Be sure to, as we started off today's show, be sure to join us in Toronto next weekend for the first of our community weekends. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have more on the one in the Bay Area in June soon.
Yes.
Putting that one together as we speak. So.
Alrighty.
Not as we speak. but you know what. All right, see you, everybody.
Our time
we'll be
is
back in a
up.
couple weeks, and great birding. Enjoy the next 2 weeks. It's a wonderful time to be out. Enjoy the birds.
And we will talk to you then.